In May of 1968, the USS Scorpion, a nuclear-powered attack submarine of the United States Navy, vanished without a trace during what would become its final mission. The vessel was patrolling near the Mediterranean Sea, tasked with monitoring Soviet naval activity during a period of intense Cold War tensions. Expectations were that the Scorpion would return shortly to its home port in Norfolk, Virginia. However, after transmitting a final message indicating that it had detected a Soviet submarine and was preparing to engage in surveillance, the submarine and its entire crew disappeared. The Navy launched a massive search and rescue operation, but the outcome was tragic. Subsequent investigations suggested a series of grave mishandlings by the Navy, including maintenance shortcuts and indications of a potential cover-up. These missteps may have contributed directly to the disaster that claimed the lives of 99 sailors. Among those originally assigned to the Scorpion was Dan Rogers, an electrician's mate who became increasingly concerned about the state of the vessel. Disturbed by what he had observed during his time aboard, Rogers requested a transfer. He later admitted that while he didn't know for certain the submarine would sink, the situation made him extremely uneasy. He described feeling so disturbed by the condition of the submarine that he was unable to face another deployment on it. His decision to leave the Scorpion ultimately spared his life, while his crewmates would not be so fortunate. The USS Scorpion was one of 6 submarines belonging to the skipjack class. These submarines were notable for their innovative teardrop hull design, which allowed them to travel at higher submerged speeds than their predecessors. With a top underwater speed of approximately 34 knots, or 38 miles per hour, they were among the fastest attack submarines of their time. The Scorpion was constructed by General Dynamics Electric Boat in Groton, Connecticut. Her keel was laid in August 1958, and she was launched in December 1959, though it wasn't until mid-1960 that she was officially commissioned into the fleet. After her commissioning, the Scorpion was assigned to Submarine Squadron 6, Division 62. In late August, she departed from New London, Connecticut, and undertook a 2-month deployment to Europe, where she participated in exercises with the United States 6th Fleet and navies of NATO member countries. In October, she returned to New England and spent the next 6 months training along the eastern seaboard. She was then transferred to Norfolk, Virginia, which would become her permanent home port for the rest of her career. From this base, the Scorpion specialized in nuclear submarine warfare tactics and conducted operations throughout the Atlantic Ocean, including missions near Bermuda and Puerto Rico. Between June 1963 and May 1964, the Scorpion underwent a scheduled overhaul while stationed in Charleston. After resuming duties in late spring, she was briefly pulled from regular assignments to carry out a 2-month transatlantic patrol. This mission was later followed by a similar patrol in European waters. In 1966, her commanding officer at the time, Norman B. Besek, received a Navy Commendation Medal in recognition of his exceptional leadership, foresight, and professional competence. Several other officers and crew members were also recognized for their achievements during this period. One particularly daring mission, referred to informally as a Northern Run, reportedly took the Scorpion into an inland Russian sea. During this covert operation, the submarine's crew managed to capture footage of a Soviet missile launch through the periscope, escaping just in time before detection. Following the tragic loss of the USS Thresher, the Navy instituted the SUBSAFE program, a rigorous safety initiative designed to ensure the structural integrity of its submarines. The program called for comprehensive testing using ultrasound technology and strict quality control measures during overhauls. The Scorpion entered Norfolk Naval Shipyard for such procedures in February 1967. However, at the time, the demand for operational submarines was exceptionally high. As a result, the Scorpion received only limited emergency repairs instead of a full overhaul. In an effort to return her to service quickly, Navy leadership authorized a fast-tracked repair strategy that bypassed many of the safety upgrades required under subsafe protocols. Repair teams, already under pressure, often relied on makeshift solutions. This included the use of non-standard replacement parts and pipes that were later found to have faulty welds. These conditions forced the submarine to operate with a significantly reduced maximum diving depth of just 110 meters, far shallower than typical for vessels of her class. After only 7 months, the Scorpion returned to active duty, but she did not receive subsafe certification. In fact, she was one of only 4 submarines in the entire Atlantic Fleet that lacked this crucial safety designation, a fact that would later raise serious concerns during post-disaster inquiries. Despite the compromised state of the vessel, the Scorpion continued operations. In late 1967, she completed refresher training and weapons tests before setting off for the Mediterranean Sea under the command of Francis Slattery. By February 1968, she had arrived at a naval base in Rota, Spain. However, her condition was still troubling. Reports from crew members and their letters home revealed that the submarine was suffering from a variety of mechanical and safety issues. These included a persistent leak in the propeller shaft, ongoing hydraulic oil leaks, the release of poisonous freon gas, and control surfaces that were increasingly unstable. There was also an incident involving an electrical fire near the trash disposal unit, further highlighting the submarine's deteriorating condition. Due to these problems, 2 crew members were removed from duty while the vessel was still docked in Rota. Despite these alarming issues, the Scorpion departed from Spain and headed toward the Azores with orders to monitor Soviet naval movements. The crew held out hope that they would soon return home to Norfolk. At midnight on May 21st, Commander Slattery sent a final radio message confirming that the Scorpion had detected a Soviet submarine. The message stated that they were at a depth of 110 meters and traveling at a steady speed of 15 knots. It was received by a Navy communication facility in Makri, Greece, and forwarded to the commander of Submarine Force Atlantic. The message noted that the Scorpion was initiating surveillance on the Soviet vessel. That brief transmission would be the last anyone ever heard from the Scorpion. When the submarine failed to arrive at Norfolk 6 days later, concern quickly escalated. The Navy initiated a full-scale search operation, employing advanced Bayesian statistical methods to determine the most likely location of the missing submarine. A Navy listening post in the Canary Islands had recorded a series of 15 distinct acoustic events over the course of 190 seconds. The sounds were consistent with an underwater explosion, and this evidence helped narrow the search area. On June 5, 1968, the Navy officially declared the Scorpion and all 99 of her crew members lost at sea. By the end of that month, the submarine's name was formally removed from the Naval Vessel Register. However, questions remain. It later emerged that a highly secretive and urgent search operation had been launched 3 days before the submarine was even officially overdue. This, along with other declassified information, suggested that the Navy may have known that the Scorpion had suffered a catastrophic failure well before informing the public. The circumstances surrounding the submarine's final mission, the inadequate maintenance it received, and the secrecy of the response have continued to raise concerns and inspire speculation about what truly happened beneath the waves. It took several months before the wreck of the USS Scorpion was located. In late October, the oceanographic search and rescue ship USNS Mizar discovered the remains of the submarine about 460 miles southwest of the Azores. The discovery was made using an underwater towed camera sled, which revealed the 77-meter-long hull lying on the ocean floor at a depth of around 3,000 meters. Due to the immense pressure at that depth, the submarine had carved a trench across the seabed as it descended. The sail had been torn off as the control center collapsed inward under pressure. One of the running lights was found to be open, possibly because it had been in use during the incident or as a result of the violent shock of the implosion. In 1969, a more detailed follow-up investigation was carried out. This included photographic and video documentation, along with testimonies from witnesses. The examination concluded that the hull had imploded due to crushing external pressure, and the submarine sank past its crushed depth. Remarkably, the torpedo room appeared largely intact, with the exception of a missing hatch in the forward escape trunk. The vessel had been broken in two by extreme hydrostatic pressure at an estimated depth of 470 meters. The propulsion shaft had separated, and the engineering compartment had caved in. Yet despite the detailed inspections, no definitive cause for the sinking could be identified. A formal court of inquiry was assembled to examine the incident, and in January 1969, a report was released to the public. The conclusion stated that the precise cause of the loss could not be determined based on the available evidence. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged to explain what might have happened. One theory, supported by Vice Admiral Arnold Shade and former crew member Dan Rogers, suggested a malfunction in the trash disposal unit allowed seawater to enter the battery compartment. This could have triggered a hydrogen gas buildup, incapacitating the crew, and possibly leading to an explosion near the center of the submarine. Another theory pointed to a hydrogen explosion caused by battery charging at periscope depth. Excessive electrical energy may have overheated the cells, producing a dangerous concentration of hydrogen gas, a known issue in American submarines during that period. Some explanations have ventured into more sinister territory. Various authors have speculated that the submarine was sunk deliberately by Soviet forces, either by another submarine or through a torpedo fired from a helicopter. These ideas appear in books like All Hands Down, Red Star Rogue, and Scorpion Down. However, such claims rely heavily on speculation and unnamed sources. Years later, it was revealed that the Navy had developed its own internal theory. It suspected that a faulty Mark 37 torpedo might have detonated accidentally. The 330-pound explosive warhead could have been mistakenly launched or jettisoned, and failing to find another target, circled back and struck the Scorpion. The Mark 37 torpedoes were known to have problems, particularly with their silver zinc batteries, which were prone to overheating and combustion. According to the book Blind Man's Bluff, a fire caused by an overheating torpedo battery may have triggered an explosion that tore through the submarine's hull. Dan Rogers, who had left the Scorpion months before her final voyage due to safety concerns, continued to raise alarms after the loss. Working with investigative journalist Stephen Johnson from the Houston Chronicle, he uncovered documents that confirmed the submarine was in poor condition. Letters from crew members supported these findings, painting a picture of a vessel in need of serious maintenance. The submarine's involvement in a secret program reportedly diverted attention and resources from its upkeep, and a limited budget only made matters worse. Authors Christopher Drew and Sherry Sontag, who co-wrote Blind Man's Bluff, argued that the Navy ignored previous warnings about the torpedoes, and while they could not prove any specific theory, they insisted the danger was real and had been disregarded. To this day, the true cause of the Scorpion's sinking remains uncertain. Nevertheless, the tragedy prompted the Navy to make significant changes. No submarine overhaul has been rushed since the incident, and the Mark 37 torpedo design was revised in the years that followed. The wreck site continues to be monitored for radioactive leakage, serving as a lasting reminder of what was lost. The USS Scorpion was the second nuclear-powered submarine lost by the United States Navy, and it remains the last.